Hello, tiny friends. Welcome back to TinyKeyHoleMinis. Today, I am creating a food item, and this is one of my favorite snacks. Now, this is a really popular Southern snack. It's boiled peanuts. So, if you've never tried boiled peanuts before, they are so delicious, and you can get them in Cajun or original flavor. They are sold everywhere in the South, in the gas stations, on roadsides. People go into businesses and sell them. They make them homemade. You can purchase these in the grocery store by the cans. You can get small cans. You can get giant cans. They turn into the texture and consistency of a cooked bean. So the peanuts get softer, and when they're done and ready to eat, you just suck all the juice out of the shell, crack the shell open, eat the peanuts, and toss the shells. And they're very addicting. So, this was a label that I have taken off of one of the cans that I purchased to bring back home with me on my trip so that I can have some there and share them with some of the people that have never tried them or they don't know about them. I do prefer to make my own, but it does take 18 to 24 hours to make these, and they're so simple. I make them in my crock pot. I use raw peanuts. You cannot use roasted peanuts, they have to be raw. And then you just add your seasonings and soak them in water in your crock pot and cook them for that amount of time. It's super simple and they're so delicious. While I was back home preparing these is when I got the idea to miniaturize them. And I don't normally come across labels often since I make my own. So I carefully peeled it off to save it and bring it back home. I'm going to be using my Photoshop design program, and I'll show you a little bit about it. So if you've never used this program before, this is Adobe Photoshop Elements 2021 version. I paid $100 for it. Sometimes you get a good sale. Sometimes there's a special. But if you purchase it, you get to keep it forever. You could download it on whatever devices you would like, and it's yours. So you get the serial number, and you get to have it forever. Now, I have a background in graphic design, and I have a degree in graphic design. And when I first learned, one of my courses was Photoshop, and it was back then very similar to this version. So that's why I love this version. It's beginner friendly. It's very simple to use. It's not complicated. It doesn't have a lot of the options that newer versions have. So it's very beginner friendly. So if you purchase this and you're going in for the first time, you want to go into Photo Editor and you want to make sure that your top option is clicked on Expert. Open up a new file, and you want to, of course, just follow the prompts. You want to put a title on it to keep it organized. And then down in your resolution, the default is going to be 300, but that's the key to printing miniature text and images. So you want to change that resolution to 600. Now, I have a newer computer that's running Windows 11, and my resolution actually goes up to 1200. So I'm going to put it up to 1200. I'm like so excited that it does that now. My printer also is a new printer and prints 1200 as well. So I am ecstatic about that. 600 is your average when you're printing miniature prints. So if your computer and printer does not go up to 1200, don't worry about it. 600 is pretty basic for miniature prints. But you want to make sure that you change that. It's going to make your files a lot bigger, as you can see. The difference between 300, 600, and 1200, of course, is going to be the biggest. But I have a uncluttered computer, and I can just get rid of it whenever I don't need it anymore. So that is the key to printing miniature prints. Change your resolution, and you're going to change your DPI settings on your printer, and I'll show you that as well. There's several ways to get your image into your computer. You can Google images, free images, and download them to your computer. You can use your phone if you have an extended cord to transfer images from your phone, or you can scan them in from your printer. I actually do all three. So I already have a printout made. I'm just going to go in there and pull that up and show you the printing options, and then we'll move on back to the project. I measured the cans that I'm going to use. So measure the cans that you're using. They're basically about 1/2 of an inch wide, and then for the length, they're probably about 1 inch and a quarter or so, according to whatever can you're using. And they're different sizes. So just measure whatever you're going to be using for your can, and you can use guidelines, which are the highlighted blue lines you see. Those will not show up on your print. But if you go down to your line tool, which will be in your shape tools, select your line, you can actually make your guidelines. These lines will show up on your print, and they're good for measuring, and they're also good for cutting lines. So if you go up to where you want to measure, click your mouse and hold it down, and then click on your shift button and hold that down, and at the same time you're holding both down, you want to drag down to wherever you want it to measure. Your shift button will keep your line nice and straight. And if you want cutting marks, then you just make another line the opposite way where you want to cut. But you have to hold your mouse button down first before holding your shift button down. So pretty simple, pretty easy, and then you can go ahead and print. So I like to fill up my sheet. I don't, especially if I'm using a specialty paper, I try to fill it up as much as I can so I'm not wasting any of the paper. Normally I'll do a printout on regular plain paper before committing to a specialty paper to make sure that my document images are the right size and I'm happy with what I'm printing. So in my printing options, I'm going to change my DPI setting as well. That's usually in your second box. You pull that up where it says change settings. I'm going to pick the paper that I'm using, and I'm using a specialty paper. So you can change your paper as well. You want to do that for your printer, and just pick the paper that you're using or whatever's the closest or most similar to that. I'm using a HP specialty business brochure type paper. It's like a professional business or something. So they don't have the exact, but I know that it's a HP professional business. So I'm just going to pick the option closest to that. And then I'm going to change my DPI setting. So I'm going to click on change. Now my system's showing a whole different system than what I'm used to because I'm using HP Smart Printing now. Yours might look a little different. Yours might look like this. But you want to change the print quality if yours look like this. And go to max DPI. So if it doesn't look like this, then you'll see a different option and you can choose the option to change your DPI setting. And then once you got that changed, you can press OK and make sure in your second box on the right side that that has changed like mine did. So my paper and my DPI should be changed to whatever I select, and then I can go ahead and print. So that's how I print my miniature images and text. I could also use my Cricut design program that works really well as well. And I've heard that you can use Word document as well. So I did a few different things here. On 2 of these, I added regular Scotch tape. And then on one of them, I did half and half with a Duraclear varnish. Half is matte and half is glossy. And I wanted to test it out to see if the ink would bleed because I have a lot of trouble with ink bleeding, and I'm not sure if it's the paper or what it is that's happening. So I just wanted to give that a try. I like the way the Scotch tape works. It protects the ink and it gives it a nice coating. I've had this vintage set of cans since like the 90s, and I'm going to use some of these. Now, I still see these online, so I know you can still purchase these, but you get so many and you get a variety of sizes. So I'm going to pull some of these out and use these and just replace the labels. You can also use the metal parts to your pencils. And I have used those as well. And right now, all my pencils are missing the metal tops, but I do have one that I can show you. This one is not usable. It's all chewed up and damaged. I don't know who got to this pencil, but these make very realistic cans. So if you got a stash of pencils, start pulling off these metal pieces, especially if you're no longer using the eraser. Don't throw them away. Now I already have a label cut out. It doesn't have any coating on it. It's just the ink from the print. So one option of doing this is pre-cutting your labels first, attaching them to your can, and then going ahead and placing a piece of tape around the label. Once you get your tape on, you can then just trim away all of the excess tape. This is a very simple method. You just want to make sure that your tape is lined up to completely cover your label, and then just trim away all the excess that you don't need. This will leave you with a nice shiny coat, and it'll look like a gloss varnish. So that's one option. Or you can just apply the tape over the print before you cut it out, and then go ahead and cut out your print. Before gluing it, I like to pre-roll it, so I'll wrap it around the can, or I'll use some sort of round tool or roller just to give it a head start. This is helpful if you're using a thicker piece of paper or if you're coating it with the tape before you're gluing it to your can. So I've got a little roller here and I'm just giving it a head start, a pre-roll, if you will. You can use bigger paint brushes, anything round that you could just go ahead and pre-start it. I'm using some tacky glue and I'm only doing half at a time. Another option is if you have a good varnish and you know your ink is not going to bleed, then go ahead and add some varnish before you cut it out, let it fully dry, or you can add a few layers of hairspray and let those layers dry in between each coat. I like to use hairspray for my prints because it locks in the ink. So I'll spray it about 3 or 4 times, very lightly, letting each layer dry in between the coats. It also gives it kind of like a matte varnish. So hairspray is very cheap and it's a very great product to use to lock in your ink or seal your mediums that you're using on your projects. I would definitely suggest adding your varnish or Mod Podge, or if you're spraying with hairspray, while your image is still on your paper before you cut. So do that before cutting, let it fully dry, and then go in and cut your image. Because if you add it to your can or your piece, whatever varnish you're using might have a reaction with the glue if the glue is not fully dried, or if your varnish is not fully dried, and it could distort your image, it could fade your coloring, and you may not like your results. So I prefer the tape method, but there are many options to choose from and different ways you can go about it. So that is all I have for you today, tiny friends. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you have, please hit that like button and give it a thumbs up. I'm going to take you in for a closer look. I still have that can that has just the Duraclear varnish on it, and you really can't tell a difference between the glossy or the matte. So I cut it out and left it as is. It wasn't too bad, but I am going to show you there was a little fading in the coloring. So I'm going to try and find that can. But these are my boiled peanut cans. And if you are using these plastic cans and they have some plastic on the bottom that will keep your can from sitting level, just go ahead and file that off. They file off pretty easy. It doesn't take much. And then your can sit nice and level. And if you guys are ever hearing any tiny little growls in my audio whenever I'm doing my audio, it's just one of my little fur babies. She has extreme anxiety and she growls at every little sound in the house. So, okay, to show you the difference between the varnished one and the tape, this can here is the Scotch tape, and you can see how vibrant the color is, and the image underneath has a nice glossy shine. And I just gotta find the one that is varnished. The images are pretty clear. My camera is just not focusing clearly this close. Here you go. Here's a clear capture. This is the varnish, and you can see the red is a little faded on that band on the side. But for the most part, it looks pretty good. I don't mind if it's a little faded in that section because I don't mind it looking old at all. If you don't want that on your cans, then you definitely might want to choose a different option. Or maybe print on a shinier paper or a glossy paper. So other than that, it doesn't look too bad. And I'm okay with how that one came out. Here's the difference between the two. So that's the tape. It's nice and bright. And then you can see the difference here where the varnish has faded that red strip. Now the residents and friends of the Josephine house can enjoy my favorite southern snack, and I can add it to any one of my miniature scenes, which I plan to do. I'm sure they're going to love these. As always, I'd like to thank everybody for subscribing, and welcome to all my new subscribers. Thank you all so much for your support. Let me know what you think about these boiled peanuts in the comments below. If you've ever tried these, if you like them, if you've never heard of them, if you want to give them a try, you can find recipes online and use your slow cooker or your crock pot. If you have any of these vintage cans or any cans that you would like to replace your labels with, I hope you give it a try. Until next time, tiny friends, I hope you all have a lovely day, and I will see you all on the mini side. Bye-bye.